What's up, suckers?
I used to go watch a band. I say, I could do that. I could do it better. I could do it louder, faster. And that's how I evolved into playing the way I play.
We were kind of the gateway for the next generation of punks, the kids that would eventually define hardcore. I didn't get into hardcore. Hardcore happened because of people like me.
You're listening to Dead Air, 2 hours of the best the punk and hardcore scene has to offer. Now let's stop talking and let's get to moshing. All right, what's up? You're listening to episode 55 of Dead Air, and I always talk about like doing something different. I've been for months talking about getting people on the air to not just be like featured guest or featured band. I want someone to actually like, you know, have a conversation, start a conversation, and have it be interesting and not just me just like fucking shit up and stuttering for 2 straight hours between some good hardcore songs. So I reached out. I got a few people get in contact with me and say, hey, I really actually want to fucking do this. So I wanted to start out with someone familiar with the show, somebody who's been on the show a couple times in the last 5 years. And last year he was here with his band, Rejection Pack. So on the line from Boise, Idaho, we got the Dev Dog. What's up, Dev?
What up?
Hell yeah. Welcome to Dead Air, like actual Dead Air, not just you coming in and playing with a band.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna just talk about fucking hardcore and how tight hardcore is.
Hardcore's sick.
What I want to do is basically we're gonna start this off with just like we'll pick a topic. This week I gave you kind of like a choose your own adventure type thing, where I let you choose from a couple topics. And we wanted to start off with something we both fucking know. We're talking about Northwest hardcore. And what I want to... The good shit. Because you and me, you've listened to a lot of hardcore podcasts, and I've listened to a lot over the last few months. None of them talk about Northwest hardcore. Not really. Unless I'm missing one. I mean, there's briefly, I think... On one of them, they talked about the Northwest being a quote unquote cool place to visit. That's about it. I just want to talk about each of our journeys from the first Northwest hardcore show that you've been to till now. So I guess I'll start a little bit. Been going to hardcore shows since 2005, but I didn't go to my first, I would consider first Northwest hardcore show until 2008. I went to all the big tours for like up to 2.5, 3 years, but the first local show I went to was like just local hardcore, was the final show for Never Looking Back with Vanguard. Cheyenne opened. God, I need to look up the flyer for that. But it was... What?
Were they from Wyoming or were they from like the Northwest?
Who?
Cheyenne.
Cheyenne was straight up from Tacoma, Seattle. They
Okay, I feel like there's another band then called Cheyenne that was from Wyoming that played here before.
It was straight up like Warriors style, but fucking it was Warriors versus Furious style shit.
That makes a lot of sense coming from Tacoma.
And they were always like, I saw this band before, and like when I say my first all local show, like I saw a lot of these bands open up for First Blood, Terror, stuff like that. Like I saw these bands, but not in like on a smaller stage level, like at Viaduct. And even some of the shows I saw at Viaduct were bigger. Like I guess there was a show months before with Furious Styles and Lahar. It was Lahar's. I don't believe it was. I think it was either a Lahar last show or a Lahar reunion.
Lahar was sick,
dude. Lahar was fucking hard. There was some hard shit.
We'll talk about. They'll be brought up by me too. But go on.
Anyways, so I don't count this as my first show because this show got kind of fucking fucked up for me, for the friends that I was with. So this was Lahar, Furious Styles, Poverty Based Saints, and Looking Forward X got flew out for this show. Super fucking weird.
What month was this in?
This was
it like April?
It was May, or it was somewhere between. It was like mid-May or maybe early
in 2008. Or what year was this? Sorry.
2008. Yeah.
My old band played with them when they were on. It had to have been the same tour because we played with them either at the end of April, beginning of May, and they had mentioned being flown out to the Northwest because they had to borrow all of our gear.
And now thinking about it, that's so fucking weird. What band like in that like tier like of Christian face down records hardcore gets flown out to the Northwest from there?
We played with them at this Christian college, and we played in like one of the dorm like activity centers, and we had to. Not that we used very much like I think we had one or two songs with like profanity in it, and they were like, "Can you please not say that when you guys play?" And I was like, "Well, no one will notice, but like, sure." But yeah, I remember. I feel like at that point, Looking Forward, like also like wasn't like as big as they had been at one point, you know, to where I was like, "What are like kind of random band to be like flown out to the Northwest?"
Yeah, I feel like it was definitely like on the decline.
Yeah. Like a lot of kids came to that show, but like, I don't know. It was cool. Like they were really nice. It was fun, but it was just kind of like different.
And I'm saving some of this for my Christian hardcore discussion I'm gonna have with my friend Taylor in an episode or two. But yeah, like I love that band because that was the type of scene and shit I was into at that time. And I don't know. I can't think of another straight edge band with the inflection and style of vocals as Looking Forward. I loved how fucking fast it was.
No, it's like, well, their one record they put out, I think the last one they put out or whatever, was like 22 songs.
Oh my
or like something insane. And it was still only like 20 something minutes. Like, it was short.
Dude, I love that. Like, I don't think any Christian band ever had a style or like that type of like attitude, or at least did it as well as that band. But still, going back to Northwest Hardcore, very fucking weird. So that Lahar show got cut short for me because a friend that was at that show during Poverty Based Saints of all fucking bands got into a little bit of a fight from I think it was a crowd killer, back armed him straight in the face, and he grabbed the dude's arm and then began to try to beat on him, and then all of the rest of Northwest Hardcore got in and fucking dogpiled his ass. And it's so fucking weird to think of it now because that dude went on, I'm not going to say the name, but he went on to play in quite a few other Northwest Hardcore bands like years later. So I remember I was on tour with him and his band, and we talked about that incident. He's like, dude, I don't want you ever you could talk about it, but never bring up my fucking name. Like, because it was like an embarrassing cringe moment for him. Cause it was like the first time that I think one of the first hardcore shows he ever went to, but thinking back and even listening to Poverty Based Saint records, like thinking back of that's a band that a fucking dog pile, like a serious dog pile occurred.
Yeah.
It's chuckle worthy. So
yeah, because weren't they like kind of like just like an oi punk band kind of, if I remember.
Yeah, I believe Posy Chris was in that band. At one.
I want to say Wayne. I think Wayne from Gravemaker drummed for them for a bit. Could be wrong, but I feel like he did.
I didn't even realize Posy Chris was even in that band until he was literally at a show just like throwing 7 inches out at the fucking show. Like just giving them away at one of the shows.
Yeah.
Like a few years back. So that show was my first technical Northwest Hardcore show, but I don't think I even made it. We never made it to Lahar or Furious Styles. We had to literally straight up take this dude home. So
that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, the next show I would say is close was that the Vanguard, Cheyenne, Open Fire, Never Looking Back. It was like definitely more metalcore than hardcore, but like it was. I'd count that as my first real. I think Ill Intent played too. First hardcore Northwest Hardcore show.
Yeah.
So let's go with you, Dev.
My first Northwest Hardcore show, and it was the first like hardcore show I'd ever seen outside of my hometown. Was it was in May of 2006, and it was actually at the West Seattle Legion Hall, and it was The Helm, Lahar, Ceremony, Blue Monday, and Goat Alone.
Oh, fuck. That's such a better show than mine.
Because I came down for like the last champion show like that weekend, and that was like they had a show the day before their show and then a show the day after. And that was the show. And it was like, looking back at it, like that's definitely like a pretty like diverse lineup in my opinion. Because like the Helm was just like fucking noisy and like fast and stuff. And then Lahara, I just remember like being super heavy. And at the time I was like still very much into like Eulogy Records and like Face Down Records and like that style of like hardcore more, to where I was like, yo, this is fucking sick. Like this is super heavy and like fast still, but like has clear like breakdown mosh parts. And then Ceremony, I don't remember. I mean, that was like old era Ceremony, but like the reaction they had was fucking insane. Like it was nuts. Like I had never really listened to them till I saw them, and I was like definitely hooked. And then I was familiar with Go It Alone, but I think that's kind of what cemented me being like still like very obsessed with that band. And then like they were fucking sick. And then I had actually never listened to Blue Monday, and it was, I guess, their last U.S. show that they ever played. And they were really good. Like they headlined, I think, and I was just like, damn, this is like way cooler than like, I guess like moshcore type shows. And I was like, Seattle's fucking tight, and it was just like a different vibe and like a really cool vibe, and like just not like people weren't trying to mosh like assholes and like tough guys or whatever, and everyone was just like having fun, like stage diving and like singing along and shit, and had a very like cool, youthful energy to it at that show. And that's when I was like, Northwest hardcore fucking rocks.
Fuck those! I wish I could have seen those Blue Monday songs like actually like performed live. Like
that's like the one thing I wish I would have like. They had like like their set was crazy, and a bunch of us flew down, and only like there was one kid with us that was like a couple years older, and he kind of turned us on to a lot of like Rivalry Records type hardcore, and like he was going off the whole set. But then I was like, after I was like, man, I wish I would have fucking been like more aware of like them in particular, especially because it was like their last show, and like because they were so good, they were so fucking good live. I was just like, damn, that would have been like way more fun versus like just kind of just standing. I was like standing on the side and just watching and being like kind of taking it all in. Like, yeah, this is really cool,
dude. Fuck. Oh, I will also, before we get to it's already been 16 minutes. I wanna take a step. Actually, we'll move a little forward. We'll talk about the first song we played in a little bit, because you and me will both have a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
At the end. I don't know if you know what I'm playing, but I got a track before we started recording. So I
have no idea.
We'll talk about it. Anyways, so from that movement forward, was that like a time? Was that for me, like, even though it wasn't like a fucking Blue Monday set, was that like, were you all in at that moment for that first show, after that first show?
Oh yeah, like so we went to the rest of the shows that weekend. It was really cool. At that point, I kind of like I switched a lot of like the style of hardcore that I was listening to more. Like I got way more into like, we'll say like predominantly listening to a lot more like, you know, quote unquote traditional hardcore. But I got like way more specifically into Northwest bands. Like I remember that weekend, Vanguard was passing out their demo in like a sandwich bag, and I picked that up and got like way into that little demo, like EP or whatever, and then kind of just started. This was back in like Soulseek days. I mean, they still have it, but diving way more into like Northwest hardcore bands, and then I moved the following year to Boise, which like obviously isn't like Pacific Northwest, like it's still Northwest, but I remember when I moved, I was like, oh, you know, like Seattle is really not that far, like. And same with Portland. Like I can drive up if I really want to go to show it. Like if tours aren't coming through Boise, and at the time, a lot more tours were coming through Boise, to where I wasn't really like thinking that I wouldn't miss out on like a lot of shows. But the year that I moved here was when like stuff already kind of started to die out. But I was all in at that point. Like became a big advocate for Northwest hardcore at that point moving forward.
And also, I mean, at that point, I think for both of the years that because 2006 for you, 2008, like predominantly, like most of those early years were ruled by Rainfest. Like,
oh yeah,
Rainfest started like after that show. That next year was the beginning of the next 9 years of Rainfest.
Yeah, I remember a bunch of the, like, because wasn't the first year at Rainfest, it was kind of like they just took, like, a few tours that were kind of already coming around and, like, threw like, locals on and kind of just combined it into, like, a fest.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of those, because I remember a lot of the tours from, like, well, you know, touring bands that played Rainfest all played Boise that year. And I remember, like, looking at it and, like, was at the point where I was like, oh, I'm going to drive, like, I would drive down for this, but then, like, because so many of them were playing Boise, I was like, well, I'll just, like, save money and, like, stay here. But, yeah, fucking Rainfest was sick. I miss it.
Oh boy, yeah, yeah. So, I would say, in between then and now, what has been, like, let's give, like, 2 or 3 of your favorite shows or moments in Northwest Hardcore.
Best one I had the most fun at is a tie between when our old band Alone played the Safe and Sound record release show. That show was really fun. Or I would say Rainfest 2015.
Oh man, that was a fun one. It's hard because most of my favorite Northwest Hardcore moments were definitely at Rainfest, but Trial in 2009, my first time seeing Trial was probably it was an eye-opening moment for me, and I became like a Greg nerd for those like for a couple years. A
Bennick head.
Yeah, I was like, so to the point where, like, as embarrassing as it is, like, speaking to him on a semi-casual basis now, like, it's weird to think that I was like so fucking crazy, but it's just like it definitely like that would be like, I guess, that more jumping off point for me to actually like really get involved in hardcore and not just be the type of person to just stand in the background. Like, yeah, because I remember a lot of the shows, like seeing Undertow in 2009 as well, and I felt like uneasy and nervous, but when I first heard Greg like speak, I was like, okay, I feel like I really do want to be like a part of something. And fuck yeah, I'm thinking some other things. So yeah, but like that first Rainfest that I got to film 2010, like, is full of just fucking crazy ass moments. I got to go for free because I brought my camera and got to film like the entire like weekend, and have people just fucking like do flips over me all fucking weekend from that Viaduct side stage, and it was just wild. But Disembodied at Rainfest 2010, I was scared for my life, my camera, my glasses, all my personal belongings. I thought I was going to be on the ground and everything was going to be fucking obliterated. And
that's the year that Bad Seed played, right?
Yeah, that was the year.
Or was that 2009?
No, that was the year that Bad Seed played. Also the year that Rotting Out opened with that Andrew WK.
Yeah. So I was supposed to go that year, and then everyone that me and my friend we were trying to like get enough people to like carpool. Everyone that was supposed to go with us was like, "Oh, I don't know," to where we were like, well, fuck, never mind. And then we ended up going to Sound and Fury instead. Like, I ended up getting a free plane ticket to Sound and Fury, so I was like, oh, that'll be my fest that I go to this summer. And then at the last minute, the people that we had asked had ended up deciding to go, and at the time I'd spent some money already. So I was like, well, I'll have enough money by July. But they ended up going, and that lineup in 2010 was very good. Like, cause did Indecision play that year?
Yeah, Indecision played that year.
Yeah,
dude, so many fucking bands played that year.
I think Foundation and Expire played.
Yep.
I remember that was the year that a lot of bands that ended up getting pretty big for like post 2010 like era hardcore were like kind of just starting out. I remember, and that was like when I was like, that was like one of the other big reasons. That, and honestly, Disembodied. Like, that was what I was most mad about, because I've still actually never seen them.
I think
and that set looked nuts.
The only band that I didn't care for, what was that fucking band? The fucking Fake Boys. I forget who's in that. You know who I'm talking about? That fucking pop punk band that I forget who the fuck like is in that.
No.
Oh, the dudes from Hammer Bros.
I've heard
dudes from
them,
Hammer
but...
Bros had a pop punk band, and it was horrible, fucking horrible.
I remember 2010 was like the pop punk. I remember like that year, Sound and Fury. There were so many pop punk bands that played, which having like mixed genre or non-core or whatever on like a hardcore show is cool. But I just remember that like there were kids like moshing to Man Overboard like it was fucking like Throwdown or like First Blood or whatever, and I was just like, oh wow, like this is weird. But I remember that year I feel like there was a lot of like pop punk and like just like pop punk stuff going on within like hardcore.
I remember like also that 2010 Rainfest, Zach Mioli, and I'm lighting him up on this one. He told me that this was the only pop punk band that he liked, and I just listened to it and I was like, this is just not good. Like, and I gave shit a lot of a pass back then because Title Fight played that year too. I think that I did a stage dive during like from where I was doing the camera from the speaker for Title Fight. So
that was the year that Ghost Inside played too, wasn't it?
Ghost Inside. Yeah, Ghost Inside played an American Nightmare cover that year, and
they covered that and they played here once too.
Yeah, that was like one of the first times I like noticed like the like where Rainfest was one of those places where a metalcore band would play, but everyone would only go off to the cover because that happened a couple times. Like 2016, To the Wind played the fest, but nobody did it.
I remember.
And then they did a Sum 41 cover.
Yep. And
I decided I like fun.
It popped off.
I like fun, so I don't know. I did like a tuck and roll off the stage and knocked down a bunch of people like they were bowling pins, and people saw.
Yeah, I definitely remember that cover was cool.
Was it 2016 or no? It was 2014. 2014 Rainfest that happened.
Oh yeah, because I remember Down to Nothing covered The Offspring also.
Oh, that's so. Dude, this is all this.
I think it was like I think they played Keep 'Em Separated. I'm pretty sure.
Oh shit! This went from Northwest to Rainfest talk. So to wrap this like, I guess this long-winded answer to a question up, we're gonna move on to the next possibly final question because we're keeping on and the time is starting to run out. My question is, what was the key moment that has killed most of Northwest hardcore, like in the last couple of years? Or do you think that, like, I'm just saying, like, do you feel like Northwest hardcore is quote unquote been dead?
I feel like it's always been there, but I honestly feel like when Rainfest ended, like that kind of it didn't kill it, but it definitely like took out a lot of, I think, the momentum that Northwest hardcore had, because one thing I always noticed with Rainfest is I felt like people went off more to local bands than they did touring bands, which I thought was cool and like different. I felt like, at least to me, like, because I didn't like live in like Seattle or like Oregon, I felt like there was a really like tight knit camaraderie, and people really like put on for each other, and everyone was like cool, and like obviously within like any hardcore scene, there it's like cliquey to a certain degree, but everyone seemed to like get along, and like everyone was super welcoming, and I feel like once Rainfest ended, it kind of just seemed like, because I remember they were saying, oh, it's like when it ended, like, okay, now it's time for like a new batch of kids to like put stuff together, like you book a set, like whatever. And I kind of feel like that torch never really got carried like it like seemed like it wanted to be, or was hoped that it would. And I kind of just feel like the more momentum that you lose, it's just kind of like harder and harder to like build it back up, you know? And I mean, they've always like, I don't think it died, like, because there's still like OHC, there's still like shows being booked, there's still like local bands coming out, and people still go to shows, but I feel like that was the one thing, like every year you could bring in a ton of people that weren't from the Northwest to come to the Northwest and then get exposed to like Northwest bands. And I don't know, I mean, like obviously traveling up to the Northwest for a lot of bands can be like pretty difficult, and I get that, but I kind of feel like once Rainfest was gone, it kind of just took a little bit of eyes and attention off of the Northwest. So yeah, that's when I feel like Northwest hardcore took a little bit of a slowdown, or like or like not a detour, but just kind of like fizzled out a little bit.
Yeah, I would never ever use the term, I guess, Northwest hardcore is dead, but I definitely say fizzled out, has come to a crawl. I would say come to a crawl, because it's
even like, sorry, go on.
It seems like, and you've experienced this, anyone who lives in the Northwest has experienced this. There's been there'll be a moment like that last show the show you talked about with Eco Strike, which is absolutely awesome, where it seems like we're like on that uphill, like, but we gained a little ground, because it felt like there was really the spirit of hardcore in that fucking room for that show, for all the bands. And also during Rejection Pack, during all the bands, it seemed like a really, really steady flow of energy for the bands and everyone.
Like, during like, I expected like when we played for like people to watch us, like a couple people would be into it, but like for the most part, to kind of be like, okay, let's wait for like the big touring bands to play. But we had like a pretty steady reaction throughout the whole set, with like several kids like going off and stuff, and like to where like I remember after the show and like after the set and like the rest of the show, I was like, this is like the vibe of what I remember like Northwest hardcore shows being like there wasn't any like beef or anything, and like it was just cool.
I absolutely I loved it. So that's why I say because crawl, it seems like sometimes it'll speed up to that moment and then just slow, and then kind of slow a little bit back down. It's a very roller coastery type thing that's been happening for the past 3 years. Like, just, I can't obviously speak for Boise, but as far as what I've seen in this central part, it seems like Portland's doing awesome. Vancouver, from the outside looking in, they're working those two scenes are working their asses off. I know that Boise is doing like stuff. They're doing what they can. I can't speak on Boise, but it seems like
Boise's doing a lot more in the last year than it's done in a long time. Like, we have like a lot of local bands right now. I mean, they all share members, but we have a lot of local bands to where and even like internally, like there isn't like any drama anymore. Like everyone's like putting on for each other and like coming out to to each other's shows and like going off and like trying to bring new people and to where realistically, I feel like that's like the biggest thing you need for like shows to be cool and like fun and like, yeah, I mean, Portland is sick. Like Emma's like booking tons of cool shows. Vancouver rules. The 2 times we've played the other shows have been really good. And yeah, I kind of feel like, I don't know, like do you think that like from Rainfest ending there was like a moment where everyone's kind of waiting around to see like, well, who's going to like pick up the torch, and then after like a minute being like, well, fuck, okay, like that isn't really happening, like to where I guess it's like up to us, like, you know what I mean, to start doing stuff. Because I feel like in the last like 2 years, year and a half especially, like more of like local type stuff within the Northwest, I feel like that's gotten like a lot bigger again.
I would say yeah, like Zach Mioli doing his thing, trying to like doing what he can to get some tours back in here. But we also, what we fucking need is bands, people picking up some fucking instruments and doing some shit. And
dude, it's when I talk to people outside of the Northwest about Northwest hardcore, the bands that generally get referenced are bands that, like, Ill Intent gets brought up a lot. They're not very active anymore, and they were active a while ago. I hear Gravemaker gets brought up.
What? That's fucking wild.
I hear the obviously, like, oh, Go It Alone, like, Keep It Clear, Safe and Sound, Odd Man Out, and Lower Species.
Okay.
But if you really think about, like, how many, like, technically, like, oh, actually, now, I feel like Dying Wish, like, now, like, they're doing a bunch of shit. But I feel like if you really think about, like, how many actual bands there are, or have been, you know, like, that's really not, and across, like, several different states. Because, like, people don't even, like, it's weird, people don't even, like, Ingrown's from Boise, but I feel like a lot of people, like, don't know they're from Boise.
That's a point I'm trying. That was gonna be one of my questions. Like RJC, do people like even connect RJC with the fucking Northwest at all?
They should, but I feel like they don't. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like people from the Northwest probably do, or like, you know what I mean? But I feel like from outside of the Northwest, I feel like I would think people think they're like a California band.
Cause yeah, I saw on even some fucking on flyers RJC from California.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, like technically, especially from when they started, like they were all still living in Washington at the time.
Yeah, and I just feel like with Ian being like somewhat the mastermind behind this, like there's got to be some sort of connection to what's here, what's in Seattle, what's in the Pacific Northwest and Northwest at large, because that's even where it started.
I know I've definitely heard people mention Ingrown, and they're like, I think they're from like Seattle or Portland. And I'm like, no, they're from Boise. Like, they definitely like rep Boise. And then like today, someone shared our record on Instagram, and we're like, San Diego hardcore. And I was like,
rejection pack?
I was like, yeah, man. I was like, yo, that's really fucking cool that you shared this. I appreciate it. We're actually from Boise, like not San Diego. And then we've actually gotten that quite a few times. Like, people think we're from California. And so we're like, that's why, at least for us, like, we're putting Boise on like merch now and stuff. So we want people to know, like, we're from Boise. Like, Boise does have like a hardcore scene.
Is that where we're getting the disconnect though? Because because people just think West Coast is California?
I think honestly, people have a very, very, very fucked idea of what where the Northwest even is. Like, people think we're from Iowa, and when they they think that's what we're next to. We've been hit up so many times, like, oh, you guys should hop on this show, and I'm like, yeah, that's 18 hours away from us. Like, that's cool, but we definitely can't. And and people do I don't think everything is so far spaced out in the Northwest, compared to other areas, that I don't know. I just talking with other people, and when I mention the Northwest, and kind of hearing where they think stuff is located and what's nearby the Northwest. Almost every time I have to yeah, that's actually not true. It's this way, and it's oh shit, I had no idea. But yeah.
All right, so big question. Where do we go from here?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because something that Charlie and I, our drummer, he's also an Ingrown now, something we've been talking about. I've been the one wanting to do it, but I'll discuss most of my stupid ideas with him. I want to put out a Northwest comp and put all of the act not they don't have to big, but just all the predominantly active Northwest hardcore bands on a comp, each gets one song, and then figure out some sort of I want to donate all the money from it to something that's in the Northwest, some sort of fundraiser. We have to figure out what we'd want it to go towards. But I think that is one next step, because that would get good national exposure on the Northwest, and being that it would be only focused on Northwest hardcore bands. And then I've been dabbling around the idea of trying to throw a fest.
That'd be amazing.
But
I want to do a fest so bad.
Realistically, what I think would need to be done, I don't think you could have a Northwest Hardcore Fest in Idaho. That would be cool, but I feel it's too far out of the way. It's not a good centralized location, But I think what would need to be done for something to be really successful is for we'll just use air quotes, promoters and people from Washington, from Oregon, from Idaho, to kind of try to all work together and just pick a centralized location, and then have bands from all the Northwest play there, and then have try to figure out maybe fly out a couple bigger bands, or even if you could plan it out around a couple tours,
a Northwest hardcore council,
kind of like the Justice League, but of kids that like hardcore. But I mean, I think something like that, because I feel before you could kind of just have Washington heads. I feel because it was Skiff and Zach and Matt did Rainfest, right?
Exactly. But it would be dope to just actually have all because the scenes actually a part of Northwest actually do some more communicating with each other,
Well, and I feel it almost had. I mean, realistically, if you're throwing let's say it's we're gonna do a fest. I feel it needs to be understood. You're not really gonna make any money. You're probably gonna lose money on this, but it's a good investment and it'll be fun. You know what I mean? And I feel I mean, there's enough current Northwest bands that if you just had that, that would be really fun and a good time, and I think worth traveling to. And then, I mean, if you could throw in a couple cool touring bands, then you can draw kids out that might not come to a local show per se.
Yeah, get the kids involved. That's the biggest thing. Getting I wouldn't say targeting, but just getting those kids. There's some kids in Seattle that are stoked on hardcore, but that shit passes after a while if shit gets stale for them. They'll move the fuck on, and a lot of kids who move the fuck on because of either it's not interesting to them. They didn't feel like they were recognized, or like nobody took an interest in them, or some, bullshit drama happens and they fucking back the fuck out. And I feel we're not going to get too far into that, but a lot of that has happened in the past that is basically removed people out of hardcore, not out of the Northwest, but out of hardcore.
Well, one of the things that's difficult too is obviously like majority of people that are into hardcore are younger. To where when you're younger, you do stupid things and you say stupid things and you act stupid at times. To where I feel like you're kind of like when I was younger, I was definitely like a shithead to people sometimes, or like said mean things, or was just kind of like very holier than thou about stuff like, oh, you're a fucking poser, like fuck off, like don't come to shows, like no one wants you here anyway. And like looking back, I'm just like, yeah, that was really dumb. And like that literally didn't solve anything. All it did was like massage my own dumbass ego and made me feel cool or whatever. And to where like hardcore, it's like a really hard thing of like, it's a very youth driven thing, but also like the youth can be really dumb at times, to where it's like kind of like hurting itself in the process, which is why I think like older kids in hardcore, I think it's important at that point to like not be a dick to people and not be like rude, and like be very like welcoming or friendly, or like explain like don't do this stupid stuff like other people did. Like all it's going to do is like hurt your shows and hurt your scene versus like help it grow and be better.
Yeah. I try to like lately I've tried to take advantage and make the most out of every fucking show that I go to, like whether it's talking to new people who have talked to me from the show, or just going the fuck off, just like you and me did during fucking Eco Strike, looking like fucking fools. Well,
that's the thing too. Like bands talk. So if a band has a good show in an area, they'll tell their friends, "Yo, go play there. It's cool." Like ultimately, even if not a ton of people show up, but everyone's going off or having a good time, and the show has a good vibe, that's a win. You know what I mean? To where I think that's important, that like what you're doing, like treating every show like it's something special versus being like, oh, well, yeah, I'm here, but I'm actually really psyched for this other show coming up, so, whatever. Like, that's super important. I mean, we played the other day with RJC and Ingrown, and there was quite a few people at that show, and the vibe was really cool, and, like, people went off to, like, basically every band, and I remember quite a few. It's at this new venue downtown here, and the show had quite a few randoms, and talking with several of the people after, they're like, oh, this was really cool. Like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, this was really fun. I want to keep coming to shows. When's the next one? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, to try to just kind of keep up that energy, I think is important. And, like, obviously it's harder if you go to a show and literally everyone knows every single person there, but the band playing doesn't know everyone, and like if they still have a good show, then they'll tell other bands and so forth.
It also just helps to have people to like a group of people to rely on, just like having more than one person helping out with shit. Like I know Zach's doing the shit by his own, but I've always like offered my help in any way I can, and like you just doing this like helps like my show infinite, just having a conversation with more than just myself, like, and opening up a real conversation like gives some fucking real content and substance to something I want people to actually like listen to and hopefully absorb. Even though we're just talking about Rainfest and just goofy shit, I want people to I want to do anything I can to get people to get involved.
Yeah, I think that's to me, like, that's what's gonna like honestly help a scene like grow or not. I mean, like being able to like pay the bands like their guarantee or whatever, like yeah, that's cool. But I mean, if they got paid but the show sucked, or like the vibe of it and like it was just like not more, I guess, like not unified. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna have a more lasting impact versus it being cohesive and friendly and like people helping out and like working together about stuff.
Yeah, fast forward from like I've talked about on the show a couple times. Fast forward from the Eco Strike to the following weekend, Combust played, and it completely bombed because hardly any of Northwest Hardcore was there. There was a lot of people, but they were like, they didn't even know that these bands were Combust and that tour package was a tour package at all. So they literally just like, they started the show late, had these bands just waiting out in the alley, and the bands
wasn't it like that house show thing, like the fest thing?
Yeah, the promoter didn't even show. The person who booked them didn't even show up. So they were like straight up like amongst people that they didn't even know. So they're just waiting out there awkwardly. And I hung out with the band for a little while. We talked and shit. And just like, that's the type of shit that like they wanted to literally just get their show done and get the fuck out of there. Like that's the vibe that I and a lot of people want to fucking avoid.
No, that should like, especially like, it's like those bands are like from the east, like they're as far away as they could possibly be, like to where if you don't know a ton of people and you're going in, it's just like a very awkward, weird vibe, like, and yeah, like why would you want to like hang out? You know what I mean? Like play your set, load your gear up, and leave. Like,
yeah,
that shit sucks,
and nobody's making them feel welcome. Like it was a hardcore show with amongst punk band, like house show punk bands, dangly ear punk, like fucking dangly earring shit. Like it was not that none of these bands were bad. I think Lysol played, but like it was like the Lysol crowd. No other, and nobody gave a shit about this tour package, and they were like stomping all over. Like a band, the tour package just wanted to play straight through. But the local bands and the house bands were demanding that the touring bands tear down their shit and let them play. And they were like, we were supposed to all play as a fucking tour package. What the fuck's going on? So yeah, that shit just sucks. Like I hate it when, like, especially I was looking forward to seeing this tour package, and like it just wasn't.
Did Fixation play?
Yeah, Fixation played.
That band's so sick.
Yeah, no, it sucked so bad. Like, Fixation definitely got a pretty good reaction from that, and all the other bands also fucking Downfall. Whew. That band fucking rips. So, anyways, what are the main points to take away from I guess this discussion? I guess don't
be cool to each other.
Yes.
Don't be like rude and mean. Like I mentioned it before, but like I feel bad. Like I've definitely been a dick to people and been like a gatekeeper before, or like just being dumb and younger, and it doesn't help anything. It just creates unnecessary drama, and it's stupid, and it literally there's no good positives from it, like at all. To where don't do that shit. It sucks. Be like, and just try to, like you were saying, like even doing like little things does help, and like I feel like having a good attitude of, oh, I should just, like, even if maybe this, I don't know if this will help, like, just try doing it, you know? Like, the more people that are like resharing flyers or telling their friends about shows or like sharing like bands and like talking about like local bands and like going off, singing along, like whatever, like buying merch, like all that shit matters and it's super helpful. And that's what always stood out to me about Northwest Hardcore in the past was like how much that was like a thing, to where I think that moving forward, like just keep up that type of energy and momentum.
Absolutely. That's all I got. That's pretty much it. Like I said, we had a song that we played at the beginning. Charlie sent me that new Ingrown track. That
Hell
shit
yeah.
is fucking.
It's hard.
Yeah,
and heavy.
Yeah, it's hard and heavy. It's like at first I was just like, "Oh, this is hard," and then it fucking hits. It's hard, heavy, fast. Fuck.
Well, like Ross's vocals are way heavier now. Like they're much
know.
lower.
Yeah, it's on that.
And then you can tell that they're also in form beating. They don't sound the same, but I feel like on the new track when it gets like into like the more like accented like mosh parts, it's a little bit heavier than their older stuff.
Absolutely. Like that shit. Like you could tell that they definitely aren't separating, like they're not, it's undeniable that it's fucking Ingrown, but there definitely is like a heavier influence on everything that they're doing, but it's not so indistinguishable.
Yeah, I remember like Charlie sent me the track before it was out and was like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And I was like, "It sounds like Ingrown. Like, what are you wanting me to look at specifically?" And he's like, "Oh, how does the recording sound like I did this?" And I was like, "Oh, it sounds great, man." Like, I thought you wanted me to talk about the song itself. I was like, "It sounds just like Ingrown, just the stuff that like, I mean, this is kind of cliche, but like, oh, the heavy parts are heavier, the fast parts are faster. You know what I mean? But it just sounds like, I mean, I can't think of very many bands that sound like Ingrown, if any. You know, to where it just sounds like them, but just like amped up, I guess. But yeah, song is sick.
Yeah, everything's just fucking more. So, Devin, thank you for doing this for our first trial run. I think.
Thanks for having me.
I think it went pretty well. We talked for almost a fucking hour about Northwest Hardcore. I hope anyone listening enjoys what we talked about. Next time you get to pick the topic. So
it will be I thought of one off the top of my head that would be pretty cool. We'll discuss that later.
Yeah, we'll discuss it later. I had some like side topics, but we're definitely out of fucking time. Like I had some other shit that I wanted to like possibly get to, but that Northwest talk was all we have time for. So thank you, Dev. We're gonna
It's what the fans want.
It's what, dude. We're filling a void in the hardcore podcast market right now that no one else is hitting, and no one else doing. I know there's definitely some people other than myself that could do it maybe even better, but there's nobody who's actively doing radio and podcasts right now that can fill that void like we are right now.
Hell yeah.
So we're going to get to some non-Northwest shit right now before I get to the next interview. We're going to play that new fucking Agnostic Front track, Spray Painted Walls, new record titled Get Loud comes out November 8th. What can I say? It's fucking Agnostic Front bringing some more fucking metal into that shit. Have you listened to this track?
I saw the video get posted on my feed, but I didn't actually listen to it. But I'll be honest, I haven't listened to an Agnostic Front like newer record in like several years. So.
That's fucking fair. You're either about it or you're not. No surprise that this shit's on Nuclear Blast at all. So we're gonna play that track, and we'll see you next time, Dev.
All right, peace out.
Vigo Eats, all vegan and vegetarian food options. Located on Pioneer Ave in Puyallup, Washington. Do your part to support vegan establishments in small towns. Check out Vigo_EATZ on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
What's up, motherfuckers? This is Deadair65 telling you to check out the brand new Deadair website now. Go to deadairhardcoreradio.com for all podcasted shows as well as news reviews and content you can't get anywhere else. Go now or feel the wrath of my cold hard robotic leg spin kicking you straight in the face.
All right, keeping up with the themes that I always keep up with. I do a lot of upstate records bands. I've been doing pretty much almost every week. So we're gonna keep it up. Today we have Mason, who does vocals in Penitentiary. Mason, what's up?
Hey, what up, what up?
How
you doing, my man?
Good. So give us a little bit of an intro about yourself, man. We do this for everyone, so it's your time to just give us your little spiel, your little background, how you got into the music you listen to, the music you play, and how it shapes what you're doing now.
Well, man, that's a I came in differently than most the most hardcore kids and metalheads you'll meet, man. I grew up like a straight up like a hip hop R&B kid and mainly Latin music. You know, my family is very, even as pale as I am, I come from a very Latin oriented family. Got a lot of Mexicano, Puerto Rican family, you know, cousins, everything like that. And so I didn't other than hearing like Metallica or like Slayer, I didn't really listen to much like metal, or even hardcore. I couldn't even tell the difference between the two until like late high school. But I was just one of the gangster kid, you know, I coming up from you know, from the 219, showing some love, you know, Indiana here, but growing up, man, in and out of like some of the trailer parks I come in, you know, I was one of those like kid, you know, everyone calls you Slim Shady or all that, but I was popping like, you know, G Unit, a lot of Wu-Tang, listen to everything like that. But I also loved old school hip hop, and one of the first intros I ever got into metal and hardcore was Biohazard, you know, when they mixed with Onyx, doing Slam. That one's kind of an early introduction, and then the other biggest one here, I got into, as a lot of kids my age, man, though, I guess I'm in the millennial, you know, fucking generation, but I was one of those fuckers playing, what was that, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, the one where you could hop off the skateboard and run around, and they had the most badass soundtrack, and I remember hearing 25 to Life for the first time ever playing that game. I can't remember, I was young, like, I think maybe like 7th, 8th grade, and I heard 25 to Life on there, and fucking Rick to Life's dumbass couldn't understand a word he said, but I fell in love with it. I was like, what is this? I want more of this. It makes me want to like punch shit, you know. And because all I did when I was young, man, I was a troublemaker. I got in fights. I got arrested quite a few times as a youngin', and so I spent a lot of time kind of locked in the basement at my grandparents' house, kind of not allowed to go nowhere. So all I would do is do like push-ups and like kind of work out my anger and just like either play video games or watch TV. You know, couldn't go nowhere. Shit, it was bad times, but that's what got me into music, because all you could do, the internet wasn't really, you know, wasn't fast and all that, so I didn't really have like I couldn't really look up a bunch of things. So all I had was what I could listen to at hand, and so I started off with my old hip hop tapes and music soundtrack from the video games, and I would just use that to like work out on. And so I got heavily into 25 to Life was probably the first hardcore band I ever got into, and honestly, Rick to Life even inspired my vocals as much as, I'm sorry, I know he's a piece of shit, everything like that, but his vocal style is what inspired my kind of like really like how I started trying to like mimic his blip laps and stuff, and that's how I ended up turning into like my barky, really yelling style. But he's my biggest influence. And then honestly, you know, I couldn't tell the difference between metal and hardcore growing up. I kind of all mixed it all into one. So I listened to everything from, I was listening to, you know, Representing, like Seven Star, and at the same time I was also listening to, you know, like bands like As I Lay Dying and like Kill Switch, and then I'm trying to think of some other examples. And like Machine Head, and mixing all these bands together. And I never knew the difference in genres. I just was like, it's hard, that's metal, you know. And that pretty much just it brought me into getting curious later in high school about in the scene. I was living on my own, and I seen these kids playing shows out in LaPorte, where I'm from. Me and Jake from Penitentiary are from. Out in LaPorte, Michigan City, and I seen these kids, and they're on stage in front of, you know, all the girls and friends in school, and I'm like, man, like I want to do that. I want to do that cool shit. Like they're yelling their feelings into this microphone and stuff. Everything looks angry. People are beating each other's asses, and I literally just forced myself into this crappy little metalcore band. Like, they were just looking for a vocalist, and like, I just went up there and I was like, hey, I've never been in a band. I can do vocals. Like, let me give it a shot. And so I started playing with this metalcore band, and I just kind of forced myself going to shows. I'm a very social person. I went up to people, you know, despite how closed off most of them kids are. I started to introduce myself. I'm like, hey, I like doing this shit. Like, we go to school together. I know we don't talk, but I'm like, this is what I'm into. Like, I like this stuff. Nobody ever took, you know, I was never taken seriously. I was still kind of a wannabe gangster, like Wiggerish kid. That wasn't cool at the time. I think it was around the rise of when deathcore was like taking over back in the late 2000s. But I kind of forced myself into it, man. I started playing in front of people, and didn't care what people thought. I thought I was, you know, it just made you feel like a rock star, even just playing in front of your friends. And I just went from there. God, that was over 10 years ago. I've always been doing vocals. I never learned an instrument, but I just kept at it, and I kept meeting all my idols and everybody I wanted to meet. I played and met with like everyone I've ever wanted to meet in life, everyone I looked up to, and it eventually led to actually, you know, Penitentiary being, this is my, I don't know what you call it. What is that? When somebody's committed a bank robbery, you know, they got that one last, you know, that last job that this is the one that the big one, you know, and to me, Penitentiary is the big one, you know, this is the main goal I'd always worked towards with doing little bands. You know, I've done serious bands, like I was in a band called Blackwater, we toured and everything like that. But it all led up to this band and this moment and the people I'm in a band with, including one of my closest friends now, my guitarist Jake. He was one of the dudes I looked up to. I was actually afraid of his ass growing up. I was afraid of him. He was scary as hell growing up, but I looked up to him and I wanted to be him so bad. And so finally getting the chance to do this band, Penitentiary, years back, man, this was kind of one of those little like bucket list dream come true kind of things. I don't know if he hears this, he's going to make fun of me so bad. But it eventually led to this, man. And I never dreamed in a day how far, you know, this band would go, and hell, even talking, you know, I'm talking on a radio podcast right now. I didn't think stuff like this would ever happen, but I just starting off stage with yelling my feelings and, you know, going through the little tough shit, you know, we all go through in life, you know, yelling that into a microphone for barely 12 people in a crowd understanding or how to turn into what it's turned into today, especially, you know, dealing with, I know you shouted out Upstate earlier, and I want to give a shout out to Mario, by the way. Mario, I love you. But, and sorry, I've been talking the ear off on this one little question. This was something, everything just little by set a little goal, and each little goal led to an even bigger goal, and it's led to today to this band. I love what I do, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But that's how I got started, man. I got started as just this curious wannabe gangster kid listening to hip hop. Who I like the energy, like, and I like watching people beat each other's ass.
I think that's the same with me. Like, I wouldn't tell people, I guess, because like the place I grew up was like a little hick town. So like the only type of heavy music was like the music that was coming like from like Hot Topic and like all that shit. So like, yeah, anytime like they look like the people would look at me like I was wanting to like play like beat you up type style fucking music and like look at me as a bad person because I wanted to listen to this style over fucking, you know, skinny jean, fucking studded belt metalcore. Like, so, yeah. So it was interesting. And going back on what you're saying about like Rick and like Tony Hawk and stuff, I feel like back then, I feel like it's just a little bit different. You'd listen to a band, you wouldn't be as much up in the band's business as you are now. You didn't know everything about that person unless you were actively going to shows in that specific area that band's playing or going to see them on tour. So like if you're a kid not getting to go out to shows, how are you going to know that a band is a piece of shit unless it's like super upfront in the lyrics, like One Life Crew or something like that? Like, yeah, like you, yeah, that's gonna be a question I need to ask for another day of just like what bands were like got the fucking pass and why they got a fucking pass for being shitheads. But as far as like 25 to Life, I'm like, how would you know otherwise? Like just listening to them on fucking Tony Hawk. So I feel
exactly.
I feel like that's not a big deal because that was then, this is now. So like,
oh yeah,
what it is, what it is, and also like that dude has keeps just getting worse and worse. So he could have been.
He's a walking meme. I swear, he's like Donald Trump, man. He's a fucking walking meme. I swear to God, bro.
Dude,
like no joke.
Yeah, he shows up like he like actually like pays attention to this show as well. Like anytime that I have a New York hardcore band on, he needs to he gets his like steam out and like feels like he always needs to talk shit on every fucking person that he knows from his past. And
shit.
And
well,
like
then...
he dumps on them on our Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God.
Well, then this is gonna piss him off. I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Chris NWI. He was in 25 to Life for a bit. I'm gonna give a shout out to Chris NWI. Highly doubt he's listening, but he's from the hometown, and he actually, that was one of the good moments when I got to meet him. He's one of the big ones, kind of pushed me into getting more into hardcore. But I'm gonna give this gonna piss. Sorry, Rick the Life, but you can fuck off. Shout out Chris NWI. I still love you, bro.
So
I hope Rick's listening. This is my dream come true. Rick alive, listening to shit talking me on a podcast. That'd be fucking dope. Bragging rights.
So going forward, just like, cause the area you grew up in. So how like I guess it wasn't that easy since you started in a metalcore band. How did it like kind of root your way into finally getting into like that, into what was like that moment you finally got into actual hardcore, like in playing in music?
Well, so the area, I don't know if you ever been to Chicagoland?
I have never been to Chicago.
Okay, so we in NWI, we're kind of almost a suburb of Chicago. We're kind of like the Jersey, you know how Jersey is to New York City. We're like the Jersey to Chicago. Like we're pretty much Chicago's like dirty ghetto redneck like cousins, but we're very very mixed populated, very Latin black and a lot of white trash. It's a very poor part of the country. So the hardcore around here, we've had separate scenes. When I started getting into it, there was separate scenes going on, and that's actually something that I'm very proud of. We've helped, I want to say, destroy and then unify at the same time around here. And I'm not going to say, I had a big part in that, but I will say I did. I tried my hardest to make a big influence on that. Around here, there was the deathcore, even though they're even during that metalcore and deathcore areas, because we got hick towns and sitting right next to some of the dirtiest, most crime-ridden cities in the country. So it's a very well mixed area. So you'll go to one town, there would have been that deathcore show, and you go to the next town over, there'd be separate people throwing an actual hardcore show going on. And so I was lucky enough when I first got in, even though I was doing, I got into a metalcore band, I got right away mixed in with the real, a lot of the real hardcore dudes, and some of even the dudes who claim they're, still claiming punk and all that. I got mixed in with all of them at once, so I was kind of hopping back and forth. I'd be going to this, playing this really skinny jean wearing fucking show where all these 30-year-old dudes are trying to bang underage girls, and then I'd hop over, and this is me in high school. I'm like 16, 17, and then I hop over to this hardcore show, getting my ass stomped in by these crew motherfuckers and loving it, doing both. And so, but what really got me more into hardcore was, honestly, it's the way I was treated, and I want to give it to respect. I'm not saying that I was respected, but just how people, when you meet people right off the bat, how the way they treat you right off the bat tells you a lot about that person. And back then, man, in the hardcore community, it was right off the bat, you're treated with the same respect that they treat anybody else, but they're not going to treat you any differently. And you learn that if anybody's ever been to a hardcore show, if there's any place that there is no, I want to say, everyone is treated equally. It's in a fucking pit, especially at a show or outside the pit, because everyone is treated the same way, and that means everyone gets flung on. You know, and that was one thing I liked, is like these people talking to me like I'm a real human being. You know, nobody was jacking on me because I didn't have any tattoos at the time, or that I wasn't wearing the right band T-shirt. You know, I was there doing the same thing they were all doing. But then I'd go to the, you know, these metalcore, deathcore shows, and I had these motherfuckers talking shit like, oh, you know, that band's not cool anymore, blah blah blah, or you know, I don't know, it was all that, you know how that shit was. That shit was all kind of bull. But what really got me into hardcore was I walked in accidentally to a Blood In Blood Out show. I don't know if you're familiar with Blood In Blood Out.
A little bit, like, not like, no, I've like being on my corner of the United States, I've known and frequently have listened back and forth to the band, but not enough to have any like expert knowledge on the band.
Okay. Well, that's kind of, honestly, if there's an Indiana hardcore band to be proud of, if there is like the kings of Indiana hardcore, I am not the only one who will tell you this. I'm going to throw it down. I'm going to nominate Indiana Hardcore Hall of Fame numero uno right there, Blood In Blood Out, and they're still to this day one of my top like 3 favorite bands, and they're a local band from my hometown. Hence Jake was in Blood In Blood Out, and Jaron from Enemy Creation, Gabe used to play in and out, filling in for them. There's members of Mode, of Millions of Dead Angels, a lot of the Indiana bands are You're Dead. A lot of these bands are mixed up are all former members of Blood In Blood Out. But they became my favorite band, and it's because, and they got me into it because it was, it was hardcore for me, and it was cool because it's like it was the scariest, their pits were some of the scariest shit I'd ever seen, but like at the same time, you meet these dudes, they're some of the, like, other than Jake's always been a fucking asshole, but like these dudes, they look like cool, like chill ass, family friendly, like hardcore dudes, but like once they play, just something about it just drove everyone in the room nuts. And when I saw this, man, that just made me fall in love with hardcore. Like, I still like some metalcore and some genty shit on a rare occasion, depending if I'm drinking. And I'm like, oh, remember, this new band's coming up, somebody show me. I dig that, but like, there'll be nothing like, the first feeling of discovering Blood In Blood Out, especially when I started listening to their lyrics, because of they have a song called Respect Our Loyalty, and that whole song is literally kind of just, it speaks just how living out in like Northwest Indiana, growing up in the hardcore scene is to like not only me, but I know a bunch of my brothers and a bunch of cats out there. It's there's a part that is yelled in the song, and the lyrics are, "I never fit in with the crowd, I never will, and that's just how it goes. It doesn't matter either way though, because I will never turn my fucking back," and says there's others like us out in the world who don't fit in but continue on. We're not the toughest, we don't claim to be, but we've got loyalty. And like, I don't know why, but those song lyrics are just, I've never had anything just kind of touch me as much as, God, I'm going to get made fun of so much for this, but I never had something just touch so close to me as those lyrics. And it just made me feel so proud of, but being from Indiana, a lot of us kids out here, all we do is we shit talk the air, NWI. We shit talk it, we're like, oh, shit, Indiana, blah, 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 but we're allowed to, we're from here, we don't let nobody else talk it. But I wanted to leave so badly when I was a kid, and then get into hardcore. It made me be proud of where I'm from and what I grew up in, and going to these shows. So like, so there's always been a strong, hardcore has never died around here. It's fallen away, but the scenes were divided. But we, over the years, with a big help from, especially from our boy Jose from You're Dead, he's definitely helped, along with the kids in No Victory, made a big push to bring hardcore and make it more predominant. We ended up kicking out the pieces of shit who were kind of running their own little game out here. Ended up kind of kicking them out of all the places. They got nowhere to go now. Got nowhere to throw shows. They're kind of not really allowed around anymore. They helped kind of take it back, and it's thrived out here, man. I mean, it hasn't been as many shows lately. I think a lot of it's been spread out, but it's thrived a lot better over the years. And so honestly, like, I think hardcore has just always kind of taken the gold over all the other scenes out here. I feel like I've driven way far off the question, man. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I think, like I said, it's a part of the world that I've been pretty far removed from in the, like, living in the Pacific Northwest. So it's definitely interesting hearing from bands like yourself and like I've talked to a couple other Indiana bands like just of lately. So it's cool getting just that education of I know the names of the bands, but nothing else besides that without like having that, insider knowledge.
Yeah, of course. That's what makes sense. You being on the other side of the country, but I mean, it's cool that you even heard, of Indiana bands. It still makes that, to me, that's still cool. Something like this can make, anything from out here can make it out that far. I can't even name I can't even think of a famous popular band period, like in any genre that is really from Indiana or artist.
I can't, man. That's a good. I couldn't name one. That's a good. I'm stumped.
I can name an actor. Maybe I can name a couple actors, and maybe like Larry Bird, a basketball player, and Michael Jackson. Sorry, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. That's really the only thing we got from Gary, Indiana. Represent. That's the only Indiana artist you could ever probably really name off.
Wait, which one did you say?
Michael Jackson.
Oh,
Gary,
shit.
Indiana.
Okay.
There we go. That's the only one. Yeah, Michael Jackson, Gary, Indiana, right up the road. Right up the road from where I'm sitting right now.
That's kind of all you need to cover all the bases. Like as far as like popular music, mm-hmm. you don't really need anything else.
Yeah.
So let's talk about current project. Let's talk about your band right now.
All right.
So you guys put out a full length last year on Upstate. It was last year, correct? Not 2017. It was 2018, correct?
Yeah, it was 2018. In 2017, we put out a split with our buddies from Chicago, Saren, and they did 2 songs, and I did guest vocals on one of their songs, and then we released an early, our early, like a rough version that we, kind of a live version of Injustice, which is on Recidivist. And but in 2018 we went to the studio, and in August we released, I think it was August or September. Wow, I'm forgetting now. No, I think it was September, because we had a CD release in September in Pittsburgh. But yeah, we released about a year ago, almost to the date. We released Recidivist, and that's the first full length I've ever released, out of any band. It was a lot of work from all of us. Mainly the band. I'm not gonna lie, me being the vocals, I didn't do nearly as much work at all, but definitely the most proud piece of music I've ever been a part of. The artwork in itself is I love it. I mean, I think it brings like that. It's hard, but it's also we got graffiti in there because Gabe's a big artist. He's a graffiti artist. He has a lot of art. So we love our graffiti logos. It keeps the hood part with the graffiti, but then it kind of keeps it shows. We got the devil up in there. 'Cause everybody loves the fucking devil. We're all down with the devil. We got the devil, and then he's over a federal penitentiary or a state penitentiary, which we're named Penitentiary. The shit just looks hard. I love the artwork. I think I'd love to see a mural of that somewhere out here someday.
So with when I listen to this full length, the 2 main bands I get, like, there's a lot of like heavy influence from a lot of beatdown, a lot of metallic hardcore, but two main bands that pop out is Marauder and All Out War, especially with like the song.
Definitely. I've heard a lot. One of the biggest influences I know of a lot of the writing, I definitely would agree, would be All Out War. I like Marauder. I'm very uneducated when it comes to comparing musically, comparing to a lot of bands. So being a vocalist, so forgive me if I sound ignorant as fuck. I love Marauder, but I probably would have to listen to him more before I could even agree. Like, yeah, definitely Marauder. I know a lot of the influences that were thrown in from each member were definitely All Out War. Everyone wanted a big Hunter Demons influence in it too. That was a big one. When we came out with Injustice, I kind of started trying to push more for a biohazard. Well, I mean, we do our gang chants, but I was trying to push more for a biohazard feel. You know, just throw. I love biohazard. I think everybody does. We get quite a few comparisons around the block. On each different way. Like we have great guitar. Vic and Jake playing guitar together are great. You know, so I definitely say with All Out War and the more metallic hardcore stuff, they definitely give it that sound. Well, especially with Chris on drums, because he can beat them drums fast. But I say what makes it different from, you know, just being a rip-off fan of, you know, All Out War and Hunter Demons and Marauder, would be my vocals. Which, yeah, I'm not the only one who does this style of vocals, but I think that's what changes us up. And so when people hear my vocals, I've heard a few comparisons. One of the best was somebody said World of Pain, which is, you know, they've been around the past 10 years. They're a great band. Irate, one of the biggest compliments we've ever gotten. I think a lot of people have told us they hear a lot of Irate in not only our music, but in my vocals. And stuff like that makes me smile because Irate is hard as fuck.
I'll have to go back and I'll have to do a side by side because I didn't think about that one. I guess when I'm thinking of the Marauder, I'm thinking of the 1999 LP, the Five Deadly Venoms, because you guys have like a kind of a big sound, and I feel like the big sound kind of almost like stadium metal with the with some of the solos and some of the longer parts and a lot of with the
okay,
the time lengths.
I see what you say.
So that record, I'm not thinking Master Killer. I'm thinking Five Deadly Venoms with this record, just specifically just because of the super just like straight up. Just like you're given a lot of time in these songs into the lead to just like fucking shred the fuck out.
All right. Well, you know what? You don't have to do after this interview. I'm going to go jam Five Deadly Venom now because now I feel like I am uneducated and I need to check up on this because like I said, I like Marauder and I feel like I need to educate myself. I'm gonna go listen to some Marauder after this interview just to see, and then I'm gonna end up probably hitting you up and being like, God damn it, let's redo this interview so I can agree.
You could agree or disagree because people's.
I'll be like, I want people to think I'm cool and know what I'm talking about, man. No, I'm gonna listen to that though. I do like what you're talking about though, man, because I agree. We don't rely too much on we rely very heavily on the music of my fellow bandmates. They obviously, if my vocals are not the power driving force of the band, they definitely kill it, and they are the ones that get all the compliments, man, and it puts me it makes me feel good, but also I feel so undeserving to front this band because I'm like, man, these dudes are killing it. I'm just up here barking like a goddamn dog about the government and, you know, and how I hate people. But
also, if you're gonna have 5-minute songs, you got to do some shit to make it interesting. You can't have stuff, you know, drone on, because when a listener looks at a song length at 5 minutes, they're sometimes they're like, oh shit. Like they're usually any listener of most genres are gonna be like, unless they're into fucking like, unless they're real fucking metalheads, are gonna look at a 5-minute song and be like, I'm probably gonna tune out after 3 minutes. Like, so
yeah.
you gotta break it up, and that's what I'm talking about with that style and what you guys are doing. You do break it up, and that's what you got to do if you're going to incorporate that type of metal with hardcore.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Especially, I mean, I come from. I mean, being in hardcore, some of the earliest hardcore songs, or I mean, still to this day, a lot of. I mean, you look at bands that do a lot of power violence bands and crossover bands. They're making songs, minutes 90 seconds long, and we got some of our songs go 5 to 7 minutes. It's really crazy that I'm happy that we're able to break that up, because I wouldn't know how to keep people's ears by myself, let alone with just a straight hardcore, keeping the same hardcore riff going on and on for minutes on end, and me yelling about the same stuff. And that's where I'm going to give credit. I'm going to shout out Gabe and Vic, writing really well together. They come up with a lot of the creativity. We actually have a song, if you've listened to the whole album, our last song on the album, which features Sharon of Blood and Blood Out, Divert and Divide. That's probably our longest one, and that's one of those where it's definitely changed up genre wise, tempo changes. It's different from what you would have expected from us, and it's obviously one of our favorites. But it does that, and it has a melodic ending, and we do, we're metallic, but like when I say, us doing something melodic like that, it's not really something we do often. So like when they wrote that song, and I didn't hear that song for the first time until we were in the studio. Every song, that was written, I was there when we were writing it. I tried to help participate as much as I could, but Divert and Divide was kind of a secret masterpiece. I'm sorry for using the word masterpiece. No one who could say that, especially about my own music. But it was a song that they were kind of secretly brewing up and been working on for a long time. And then finally, it kind of got put together. And I showed up to the studio, and they said, "Oh yeah, hey, we didn't show you the last song that we've been talking about doing." And I didn't hear it till I got into the studio. And it didn't, to me. It was, I don't know, that it for being as long, because I was, I saw how long the track length was. I was like, man, I got a song that's that long. That's not hardcore, bro. But then I heard the song, and just by hearing how all the changes are, and especially I didn't write the lyrics to that one. That was Jake and Gabe came together, wrote that one. But putting the lyrics together with it, and then throwing in Jaren's part, man, that I'll say that's probably a proud moment for my band from me, that we were able to do a song that was that lengthy and still, I feel like, keep people's attention, even playing it live. Because the first time we played it live was at our CD release, and we played it, I don't want to say it's an encore, but everybody was like, one more, and we're like, well, shit, we haven't played the song live yet, and we played it, and people were digging it, man. That was my biggest fear, is, man, this song's gonna be too long, people are gonna walk out, go smoke. But so yeah, so what going along with what you were saying, I agree. And then I had to plug in the song.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I compare you to those two bands specifically, because like those are bands, like, if you're going to a show, most people are looking to mosh. Like, so
Yeah.
So if you can have 5-minute songs and still have them moshing and paying attention, then you have something. You have that balance. You have achieved that center balance of metal and hardcore.
Yeah.
Of like real metal and hardcore, not just like metal and hard. You like have both genres down pat.
Mm-hmm. Something that both metalheads and hardcore kids can enjoy together. Not just like, not just a specific crowd, one little specific part in between the communities. I feel like it's something that both wide range of metal kids and hardcore kids can enjoy, and that's what I like about it. For
real. And that's what I was gonna ask. So, okay, that was the vocalist of Blood In, Blood Out for that last song. Because I was gonna ask because now I need to go listen to. You have some stuff that you gotta listen to. Now I have some stuff that I gotta listen to, because it sounds literally so much like the vocalist Marshall from the Warriors.
From the Warriors, okay. Guys, see, I'm not too much. I know who the Warriors are. I feel like he would take a compliment on that. I don't think I've listened to the Warriors though, like much. If I have, it's popped up, so I wouldn't really know about what the Dude from the Warriors sounds like. But I know the band. I always compared him to this going back to my early days hardcore. I compared him, kind of reminded me of a higher version of the vocalist from No Innocent Victims' later work, like Flesh and Blood and To Burn Again. I know they're a Christian hardcore band, but like he had that feel to me. You know?
I know all about that. That hick town that I grew up in that I mentioned. Yeah. I used to go to church there, so.
Oh no, you son of a bitch!
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, I know all about that scene.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I got into that too because, like I said, that was another thing. Like when I got arrested, the second time I got arrested when I was 14, I had to do community service and I had to go do it at a church, and so there's this youth group going on. And they're like, oh, well, you like this stuff. There's this, they were showing me new bands, stuff like that, and that's how I ended up finding No Innocent Victim. And that became one of my favorite bands. That was one of my first hardcore bands. It's No Innocent Victim, and I got into a lot of that. I want to call it Christcore, but like the hardcore Christian bands. Man, I got into them early on. But I mean, I think back in the day, I think during my our era, I feel like that we're not the only ones. I think that was a way of getting kids into youth groups and churches, trying to get them in. Was like, hey, look at this cool band. They're just like the band you like, but they're talking about Jesus.
Yeah, like these bands were, I would say, like if I would go, like there'd be like the yearly like Christian music festival, and then there would be, I would like dig through the crates of like the bands like from Face Down Records, like so they would have, that would be like their quote unquote like throwaway bands, like Seven Star, No Innocent Victim, that would be in their sales racks, and that would be what I would be like digging through for my music when everybody else was looking at other shit. So, and then obviously like most people, I grew the fuck out of it. But yeah, I'm gonna be doing an episode on that very soon, talking all about the ins and outs of the shit that people don't know about these bands and all that shit. But moving forward, that's seriously, when I was listening to that on the way, that last track of your record on the way, I was like, damn, it's literally sounds so much like the Warriors. So I'm like, that's a band I'm gonna have to go back, Blood In, Blood Out. I'm gonna have to actually like take a dive into that, because there's, like I said, bits and pieces. The name came past me, listened to a little bit of the band. There's also a video of I think it was one of the members like fucking went up on stage and beat up a scenecore band.
Yeah, oh god, that's Jaron, that's him. That was Jaron and Jake did that. They so the story behind that, you'd have to ask Jake or I don't know, Jaron's also an Enemy of Creation. I don't know if you've interviewed them or if you're going to talk to them, but if you ever talked to Enemy of Creation from Indiana, ask them about that full story. But it was something going on that band apparently, because it says in the video that it was to a second-story window.
Oh yeah,
that's who it was. So supposedly they were like making fun of a Chicago hardcore band, and one of the dudes from The Killer called Jake and was like, "Hey, are those dudes at that show?" And he's like, yeah. It's like, hey, they were making fun of blah, blah, blah. We ain't cool with that. And so Jake and Jared is fun. Long story short, Jake and Jared did that thing. Went up to this band while they were playing on stage and whooped their ass. just because, like, and that's what I love, man. That's what I love about those dudes. Their boys said that they were disrespected, so they went and did their thing, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm looking, I saw this like so fucking long ago, and then somebody reposted it like maybe a couple weeks ago. I was like, I forgot this even existed. Like I think this was the type of thing that got around this time that my friends were a little like hesitant to want to go to a hardcore show.
Yeah, 'cause like, oh, there's people fighting each other. Yeah, it's definitely one of those. It's definitely one of the.
Yeah.
I could definitely could have seen that clip happen on that Ganglands episode, if you know what I'm talking about. One of those, like, oh, look at what these kids are doing. You know, like,
look at what.
Oh man, yeah, but no, it's they're definitely a lot more chilled out and relaxed. Like Jaren's definitely. I mean, if you met Jaren in person, you'd be like, that was you. Like you got to meet. He's a big fucking teddy bear that can whip your ass. But like you meet him, he's seriously one of the soft. I don't want to say soft, but he's one of like the most kind-hearted dudes you'll ever meet, man. And even though Jake's got a tough exterior, he's tatted up head to toe and talks like an asshole. Jake's also too up as after getting to know him past I can't even think how many years now. He's got a soft interior as much as but those do it, man. That's one thing I'm proud of though. That's what makes me proud of being from where I'm from. Is we got guys like that, and they're my boys. We got people like that, Even though jumping a scene band on stage probably wasn't the best idea in the world, but because just because of the loyalty, like, hey, our boys got a problem, we still have that out here, man. If our people got a problem, we'll take care of it then and there for them. If there's an issue, like, hey, somebody's bothering you, like, we take care, especially at a show, man. Like, we don't put up with that out here. And I know a lot of other scenes are like that. But out here especially, man, we don't. Oh, that's the wrong turn. Sorry, I'm driving right now.
That's all good.
I'm in the middle of the boonies. I'm trying to find a spot to.
Don't get yourself fucking lost.
No, I won't get lost. I know this boony area. I'm gonna pull in this liquor store. There you go. I'm going in there anyway. But but no. Yeah. If you ever meet anybody who knows me in person, they'll tell you I'm a bit of a partier. So
yeah, that's.
So I gotta. There we go. I can park. I'm not gonna wreck. All right. So anyway, yeah. So I forgot what the question was, my man.
We were just talking about that video, the blood in, blood out.
Oh yeah.
And just talking about that. That's all we need to leave it at there. Like, anyways, so let's wrap this up. First of all, thanks for taking the time.
Hold on, my man. Let me pull it up here.
You're good.
Okay. All right. Try the question again.
I'm just saying thanks for taking the time to talk. I know you're out doing some running some errands tonight.
Yeah. I'm extracurricular activities and errands and shit before I go to work. No, I'll just hit the liquor store. Gonna have a few before I go to work. Don't tell nobody. No. Sorry, radio. Sorry, America. I do, however, man, I don't know how much time we got. I do want to give some shout-outs, though.
Yeah, do your thing.
Dude, first off, I want to shout out everyone in Chicago. I know I gave much love to Indiana tonight, but Chicago, that's our boys, man. Especially, man, you got that. I can't even name them all, but everyone of our Chicago boys, y'all know who you are. You know we always got your back. Y'all learned that before. All the INHC cats, no matter which part you're from, that includes you guys that disappear down there. We love y'all. I'm gonna give them a shout out. But if anybody gets a chance, man, who's listening, if you ain't checked out Indiana yet, man, we got some great bands. Of course, got my band Penitentiary, but we got our buddies in You're Dead. We got Millions of Dead Angels. We got Enemy Creation. Just in our little area, there's quite a few more, man. As you get more in other parts of the state, that's mainly NWI. We also got, I think Purgatory now is Indiana. I think they moved out here and they got. I think they took on some members from No Victory, but those, I'll give them a shout out too. They're cool cats. I know a lot of them guys. Ain't seen them in a minute though. I heard they're traveling out. I just want to say thanks for this opportunity. Shout out Upstate. If anybody is going to be in Verona or Ithaca, New York on Saturday, we're headlining A-Hole Fest out in Ithaca. We got a bunch of our boys. We got No Good Deed, Before I Had Wings, Forgiveness Denied. Shit, a whole Wrong Move. Shout out Wrong Move from Albany. We got Rest in Piss is playing Concrete. We got a whole bunch of cats coming out playing, and it's going to be a party. roll out to that. If you out in the East Coast, out in Brooklyn at all, we're coming back to Beatdown Nation October 12th. Lucky 13 Saloon. We're playing Pittsburgh October 11th. It's gonna be rolling out a whole Midwest crew, Bad Blood, Bovice, a bunch of our buddies coming out to hit there. I want to see some motherfuckers at some shows. I hope to meet more people in person. I hope to meet you in person sometime soon, man. I know you all the way out. Tacoma? Is that where you from?
Yep, Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma, Washington. I got my boy G from Body Bags out in your direction, man. So I'm gonna come see him. I'm gonna come see him hopefully next year or two, and I want to come actually meet you in person, and you can show me what Washington hardcore is all about. All right?
Hell yeah, come visit. We'll have a good time. Man. All right, so we're gonna get out of here. You're listening to Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio.
Shattered bones of independence for my crimes. Still as the blood seeps through my hands to the brain below. Broken and beaten, but never defeated. Into time, I'll rise again to reclaim my brain. When blade flesh and steel meets bone. When beasts of fortune are turned to stone, I stared into the face of death and its left me cold, left me cold. Locked deep inside his penitentiary in my own mind. But I'll soon break these chains and remove the veil that's rendered me blind. So now I scrape myself from the concrete and take back my life.
All right, so episode 65 of Dead Air is wrapping up. A super talk-heavy show. Hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Mason of Penitentiary. Check out the band. As always, support them in the Upstate Records family. Shout out to Ingrown. Fucking good shit. Check out the new Agnostic front. Like I said, very few songs today. And if you want to get in the discussion and be a part of what we're doing, hit us up at Dead Air Hardcore Radio on Facebook. So facebook.com/Dead Air Hardcore Radio, or deadairnwcz@gmail.com is our email. Our socials at both Twitter and Instagram are deadairnwcz. And there's deadairhardcoreradio.com, which needs a little bit of every once in a while it it needs some work. I've noticed that the mobile version is a little laggy and needs a little bit of a TLC. So I'm going to be working on that in the next week, as well as getting the all the some new reviews up there. Make sure all the new episodes are up. We'll be working to make this a better thing in the future. So schedule, just to remind everyone, we always are live here in the NWCZ studios on nwczradio.com, channel 1 on Wednesdays from 8 to 10 Pacific Standard Time. And then we go over to Las Vegas to radiovegas.rocks. That starts at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Then we go to Renegade Radio, renegaderadio.com, Thursday nights from 9 to 11 Pacific Standard Time. And then 7 to 9 Pacific Standard Time, we're both on podunkradio.com and ripperradio.com. And we finish up our live broadcast on purerockradio.net Sunday from 2 to 4 Pacific Standard Time. And then we also podcast it every Monday. Deadairhardcoreradio.com and Ripper Radio also provides us with streaming possibilities on Spotify. So if you check out Ripper Radio on Spotify, we are on there. We'll always put the link to the both podcasts, so it's easier for you to listen to both shows. That's all I got to shout out this week. We're going to play a song from Enemy of Creation, another heavy-ass band from Indiana, off of their Victims of the Cross record. We're going to play Lies. Hope y'all have a good week. You've been listening to Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio.
suckers.